Hello. I'm currently in the midst of a move, hence why the room is kind of echoey, I'm slightly sweaty, and also why I'm standing. Like, there's just no room to sit in this space whatsoever because of all the boxes, so it is what it is. I'm so excited to be moving, mainly because of all the, what's the word? Bullshit I had to experience while living in this space. Like, it has been very trying to the point where I'll be doing a story time very shortly about my experience here. Like, that's the only way in my mind I can do justice to my experience here, so stay tuned for that. But on a more positive note, because I am moving and packing, I want to do some home decor or even home-ish kind of videos on my channel because y'all seem to like that. But also because the space that I'm moving to very shortly is a lot smaller than the one I'm in right now, and even the space that I was at prior to this. So there will be no wall units in that space whatsoever, and probably will never be any wall units just because of how small it is. So that being said, I did want to show you guys how I went about styling this wall unit before I pack it all up. And I think this wall unit here is a good depiction of my styling right now. Like, it's kind of Restoration Hardware, West Elm, kind of farmhouse. It's a little bit warmer and more personal to my likes and interests, and also my family's likes and interests because we all live together still. Whereas my wall unit that I had prior to this one was really large and tall, like it was like 8-foot ceilings, and it was kind of my first hack at styling a wall unit where it was a lot of metallics and blues and kind of nautical theme to the point where it was a little bit too obvious. Like, I think that looked a little staged. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just how I felt. Like, it just didn't feel personal enough. So this one I think is a really good depiction of my interior styling and my likes and interests, like I said. But also, I am not saying I am a expert or a professional at this whatsoever. I'm just saying this is what I like and I'm happy with how it turned out. So view it as that. So yeah, if you guys like this video, go give it a thumbs up, subscribe, bell notification, and let's get into it. This is a perfect example as to why I hate this place. Anytime I try to film in this room, I always have a full-on audience. Like, there are cars lined up right now looking in, there's people walking by, there's a retail store just facing me. Love that. So this wall unit is broken into two halves. This is the left side, there's a fireplace and a TV in the center, then there's a right. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning both sides is because when it came to organizing and displaying the objects here, I kind of had to work with both sides at the same time, or I had to look at one side and kind of coordinate it with the other, because if you just mimicked one side to the other or made them identical, it looks really unnatural and odd to the eye. So you want to make it look cohesive, slightly similar but not the same. So I will show the right side very shortly. Now, this wall unit is just 3 exposed shelves. There's no center divider, which I really like with the wall unit now. It just somehow naturally worked out, because at my old place, I used to have a wall unit with a center divider, and it kind of limited you with what you could do with the room or with your arrangement of the objects. Plus, I also just find having 3 exposed shelves now looks more modern and more up to date with what's going on with interior design, because if you look at a lot of home decor accounts, they all feature this 3 exposed shelves moment there. So I really like it a lot. Now, the first thing I did when trying to decide what I wanted to do with my wall unit, I chose to start with a color palette. I just find that's like the first thing I ever do when it comes to doing any sort of design, whether it be like for my own personal graphic design stuff, interior design, whatever it is. I always start with color because it gives you kind of a landmark to work from. So what I did for color palette was a very simple, muted color palette, just a lot of grays, blacks, whites, almost like a monochromatic feel to it, with the occasional muted color seen through like greenery, some wood elements, keeping it very muted and not so vibrant. Just because I found over time when working with color, sometimes colors go out of style, they fade, they just don't look as fresh as they could if you left them natural or a neutral color palette. So that's the first thing I did, and then the second thing was deciding what objects I wanted in my wall unit. And one thing I really wanted to strive for when doing this one was incorporating books or some sort of like paper magazine element into it. Now, trying to fit in like just books themselves, like whether just like it's novels or just like whatever kind of book, into a wall unit can be a little bit difficult, just because sometimes you don't have that many books unless you're a really big reader, then good for you. But sometimes just working with books themselves, like those like just like books, you know what I mean? Can be a little bit harder because the binding's not like the right color sometimes, the size doesn't work, like it just looks really, I don't know. So what I chose to do was incorporate magazines, specifically Vogue magazines. I just really like the look of Vogue magazines when they're all stacked and lined up. It just looks very crisp and clean and very structural. Plus having that white binding with the black writing just works really well. And the other magazine element that I added into this wall unit was Restoration Hardware books, which, by the way, if you're looking for a really cheap and affordable way to fill your wall unit, one is Vogue magazines, because it's kind of a hobby or like a little bit of a collector's thing. Like, I just like collecting Vogue magazines, so it makes it more personal to my wall unit when people look at it. But if you're looking for something a little bit cheaper than that, go to Restoration Hardware or go on their website, or I don't know how you sign up for the lookbooks there that they have, but easiest way, go into the store. They have these lookbooks that they bring out every season. They're this thick right here. They're very simple, muted color palettes typically, and they just fill your wall unit perfectly if you're looking for something a little bit larger and flatter to place in your wall unit. So I really like those a lot, and they're free, so you can't go wrong in that way. So after I got all the objects that I wanted in my wall unit, I have to figure out how I wanted to arrange them. Now, I played around with this for quite a while, to be honest, just because doing the 3 exposed shelves, there's so many possibilities. Like you could have it center weighted, you could have one side weighted with one side minimal. So there's a lot you can do. The best way that I found for myself and for my room that I have right now was just to do 2 center columns, and that kind of applied to the right side as well. Having the whole center column right here just makes it a little bit more minimal, refined, also gives more breathing room to the center and both sides as well. So I just really like that a lot, and I think that's a fair representation of me as well. I just like very minimal, clean, classic things. So once I figured out the grid or the framework of how I wanted objects laid, I kind of had to work with how I wanted each style of object arranged. So what I mean by that is with books, I wanted them in a zigzag motion, and then I wanted objects in the opposite zigzag motion. So if you see right here, I have book with object, book with object, book, book with object. And to break it up so it's not so obvious that I have books going in a zigzag motion, I chose to change up the size of the book, the type of book, also the different object that's on top, or even just leaving it with just books themselves. So I actually really like having coffee table books in my wall unit, specifically on the bottom shelf right here, just because you get to see the top of them, you get to see the side. Plus, this is probably the only area that you will ever get to probably fit a coffee table book into your wall unit because it's the largest surface area. So that's kind of how I went about doing the book side, and then same thing applied to the object side. I chose just to do structural home accent pieces going in the opposite zigzag motion. So I have a picture frame at the top right here. I have a house clay object with a plant, bowl with potpourri, and then my large fish object going in that direction as well. And then one of the really big things I wanted to incorporate with the structure elements was color, or just like some form of warmth to the wall unit. So what you'll see here is that I have like a plant and then another plant right there. These 2 objects right here have wood elements to them, so the potpourri right here, which I find does like a dual purpose, so it offers a nice fresh scent to the room, but also it does give it more interest to the eye because there's so much going on inside the bowl right there. And then also just having the base of this like silver fish right here as wood does offer some warmth as well. And if you're looking for really good plants to put into your wall unit, I highly recommend air plants, because air plants require really no care whatsoever, except for like once a week, just dip them in water and then they're fine. They require no soil or anything like that. That's how I did the left side right here. Now I'm going to show you the right side just so you can see how I kind of managed to balance out both sides. So this is the right side. Right side I would say mimics the left, but it's not identical. So there are similarities with it, but again, you don't want it to be exactly the same because otherwise it just looks unnatural. So what I did when it came to the arrangement of the right side is that I did follow that zigzag pattern as I did on the left. So if you see right here, I have books going in this way and then structural accent pieces going in the opposite. But what I did to change it up so it's not identical was having one singular book at the top, where the left side there was 2 books in a bowl. Then I had on this shelf right here 1 book with a plant on top, whereas on the left side it was 2 books with a coral piece. I had Vogue magazines right here, which it is the same on the left, but there are fewer Vogue magazines here. And then on the very bottom, I just chose some Restoration Hardware books with this big kind of jute covered jar. I think this really works well with the left side because I did change the amount of books that I have on it. I changed the objects that were on top of it, the arrangement of them, and also just the overall choices of the objects and shapes of them. Yeah, that's kind of how I did the right side. And I think it works really great with the left as well because it makes it cohesive, I feel like that's the word of the day. Sorry if I keep on saying cohesive, but I think it works really great with one another, and they look similar but not the same. There are elements that are the exact same as the left and the right, but they're arranged differently so it doesn't make it seem so obvious. And I think that's a big key when it comes to arranging a wall unit, is making it look seamless, kind of like very catered, polished, but without making it look too obvious that you intended it to look that way. You know what I mean? Like organized but unorganized. Okay, so that is how I did my wall unit. It is the very last wall unit I will most likely be doing for a very long time. It's sad to say, but luckily the objects that I have in this wall unit will transfer very well to different parts of my house, because it is very book-based or magazine-based, where a lot of these pieces were originally actually pulled from different rooms already. So I think it's not going to be too much of a blow trying to figure out where to put them. If you guys like this video, go give it a thumbs up, subscribe, bell notification, and stay tuned for more home-ish content. So yeah.